Welcome to part 2 of the Project Management Masterclass preview. Today, we're going to be looking at questions. We start off with the people piece of the exam. First question, you are working on a project as a team facilitator. You have identified that there is conflict among 4 team members who have formed factions. What is the best course of action for this situation? A, resolve the conflict issue for the team and get management involvement. B, evaluate, recommend, and reconcile the appropriate resolution solution. C, avoid getting involved in the conflict. These matters are expected on teams. D, find out which party is wrong by having separate discussions with the team. I'll give you 5 seconds to conclude your answer, and if you need more time, feel free to hit the pause button. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The answer to this is B. This is the best option based on the PMP exam content outline. All the other options are either reactive or incorrect. A lot of the questions on the exam are as straightforward as knowing what is the right thing to do versus what are the seemingly nice sounding things that are incorrect. Conflict is not about finding out who is right or wrong. It's about bringing both parties to the table as much as possible to collaborate. You could be a facilitator of that collaboration, and that is what B suggests. D is wrong. C, don't avoid getting involved in the conflict. It says you're working as a project team facilitator. This is part of your job. And A, you don't resolve conflict issues for the team and get management involvement under most circumstances. Don't resolve conflict for 2 parties. Next question. A new team member just joined the project with very little experience. However, she is very confident in herself and her abilities to learn. She's very eager to take on work. Which leadership approach should you use with her? A, delegating. B, coach. C, directing. D, collaborative. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you need more time, hit the pause button. The answer to this question is based on the Hersey-Blanchard situational leadership model. And in that model, we have 4 quadrants. Bottom right, direct, top right, coach, top left, participative or supportive type of leadership, and the bottom left, delegating. In this case, we have an individual who is already highly motivated, eager to take on work, and confident. Therefore, this individual needs a lot of direction because they have no experience, but they don't need a whole lot of support. For that reason, we would choose the directing style. The answer to this is C. Let's go to our next question. As a servant leader on an Agile project, one of your key responsibilities is to A, remove impediments. B, delegate work to team members. C, plan out the schedule and cost. D, plan out the scope, schedule, cost, and quality. Hit the pause button if you need more time. 3, 2, 1. Taking a look at the question setup as a servant leader, one of the key things you do is remove roadblocks. So the correct answer for this is remove impediments. This is the best option based on the Agile Practice Guide and general Agile industry awareness. Next question. On your 5-month government project with 20 powerful stakeholders, you also have a stakeholder with a low level of power and interest on the project. What should you do next with this stakeholder? A, keep informed. B, monitor. C, keep motivated. D, manage close. Hit the pause button if you need more time. Countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's take a look at the power interest grid, also known as the influence impact grid. You might recall from our studying together, from other videos I have on YouTube, you can think about power on the y-axis and interest on the x-axis. You could break this down into 4 quadrants. Stakeholders with a low level of power and a low level of interest, you need to monitor. Low level of power, low level of interest. Monitor them because they could change as the project evolves. Stakeholders with a high level of power and a low level of interest, you want to keep satisfied. Stakeholders with a high level of power and a high level of interest, you want to manage close. And stakeholders with a high level of interest and a low level of power, you want to keep informed. Therefore, the answer to this, a low level of power and interest, is monitor B. Next question. Understanding what ready means so the team can take in work, what done means so the team can judge completeness consistently should be in a document known as what? Is it A, the project charter? Is it B, the project scope statement? Is it C, social contract? Is it D, scope management plan? Five, 4, 3, 2, and 1. The answer to this question can be found in the Agile Practice Guide on page 50. The best option is not the project charter. At this stage, the team hasn't even started conversing, and it's the team that defines some of these terms. So it can't be the project charter. Project scope statement is from the traditional world, can't be that. Ready and done are Agile terms. And D, scope management plan, it can't be that. So on your exam, use the process of elimination to cross out what it couldn't be. The only one it could be is social contract, C. Once again, familiarize yourself with the tools that are likely to be available on your exam based on feedback from other students. Also go on down to the Pearson site and make sure you are familiar with the layout of the exam and the interface. It will help you. If you're getting ready for the exam and you are stumped and stuck and you need additional help, I would encourage you to go on down to our website. It's praizion.com. On that website, you can sign up for the Project Management Masterclass. You can sign up for on-demand training that you do self-study. You can sign up for the Agile Practice Guide Immersion Training, where we go through the Agile Practice Guide. If you're a PMP, you can look into the Project Leadership Institute. And if you click on that link for self-study and you scroll down, you see different options. But one of the options is live coaching. So if you need a live coach, hit that. And before you know it, you'll be laughing all the way to the score bank. Thank you very much for joining me on this first episode of PMP Questions. That was, again, from the people domain. In our next episode, we'll take a look at the process domain. Hello there, welcome to a preview of the Project Management Masterclass. Today, we're taking a look at questions from the process area. The intent is to give you small snippets of people, process, and business across 3 episodes and to get you into that mindset. Let's get into the process piece. Dash, help Agile teams using Scrum learn from its previous work on the product and its process. Is it lessons learned? Is it B, knowledge management? Is it C, retrospectives? Or is it D, work performance reports? 3, 2, 1. The best answer, according to the Agile Practice Guide, section 5.2.1, is retrospectives. Retrospectives help Agile teams using Scrum learn from its previous work on the product and its process. Let's go to our next question. The product owner often works with the team to prepare some stories for the upcoming iteration during one or more sessions in the middle of the iteration. The purpose of these meetings is to refine enough stories so that the team understands what the stories are and how large the stories are in relation to each other. What does this describe? Is it A, backlog refinement? Is it B, iteration planning? Is it C, sprint planning? Or is it D, sprint review? All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. The answer is A, backlog refinement. This is a ceremony that happens in the middle of the sprint, but it is not formally recognized in the Scrum Guide as a ceremony. It is not one of the 3-5-3 configurations from Scrum. You know, we say 3 roles, 5 ceremonies, and 3 artifacts. Well, the backlog refinement ceremony is not one of the formal 5, but it's an important one nonetheless. Subliminal, if you wish. A lot of teams recognize this as a ceremony, but the Scrum Guide, till date, though mentioned, does not see this as a formal ceremony. Let's go to the next question. You are the project sponsor for a new initiative. You have been approached by the project manager for direction on how to initiate the project. Which of the following sequences would you recommend? Is it A, business case, benefits management plan, needs assessment, project charter? Is it B, needs assessment, business case, benefits management plan, project charter? Is it C, benefits management plan, project charter, needs assessment, and business case? Or is it D, project charter, business case, benefits management plan, and needs assessment? You may need more time for this question in particular. Hit the pause button if you need it. Five, four, three, two, and one. Taking a look at the options. These options are listed in a particular sequence, and you can immediately see when something sticks out if you have great mastery of these items. The project charter should not be the first thing. That disqualifies option D. The benefits management plan should not be the first thing. That disqualifies option C. Option A says business case and benefits management plan before needs assessment. That is wrong. The correct answer is B. The needs assessment is first, then the business case. You could do the business case and jump between business case, benefits management plan until you are done and proceed into the project charter. Definitely take a look at page 30 in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. Next question. You have completed your review of the deliverable being created for your customer. The deliverable output does not reflect verification or acceptance by your quality team. What should the project management team do next? Is it A, control the project scope and prevent scope creep? Is it B, proceed to validate the project scope and obtain approval? Is it C, perform quality assurance and review any generated change requests? Is it D, carry out regression analysis and administrative closure? Five, four, three, two, and one. Let's end that poll and let's take a look at the answers. So, when you have reviewed a deliverable and it does not reflect verification by your quality team, it should not proceed any further without you getting down to the bottom of why that deliverable did not pass the test. So there are a number of ways you can look at this question, and there's quite an elaborate assortment of charts I would like to share with you before we move on to our final question. First of all, think about direct and managed project work as producing that deliverable. But in the background, you have managed quality. And that is because as you're creating a deliverable, you should be checking the process. That's exactly what we do in managed quality. Now, the deliverables, when produced, go to quality control or control quality, if you will. This is what is being described in the question. The deliverable went to control quality, but it was found to not be satisfactory enough to send further. So we had a change request of sorts. What should we do? Well, that change request, if approved, is going to go back into the pipeline. But there's something else that happens. Not only do you have a change request, you should also have some steps that precede the change request. And that step is from quality control, you are going to have a feedback loop that goes from control quality to manage quality. And this feedback loop contains some very important measurements, and it is known as quality control measurements. And a quality control measurement is used to deduce the reason for non-conformance of that product, service, or result as identified by the quality control team. So think about it like this. Yes, we could get change requests directly from control quality, but at the same time, we could get quality control measurements going to manage quality, and that giving us change requests as well that go into the perform integrated change control process. Now, understanding the flow of these processes used to be something that was needed for the exam on most fronts, but we don't hear a lot about it today. Nonetheless, the logic could help some people who get questions of this nature. So just remember, we could have a change request from managed quality for changes that are generated as a result of you analyzing those quality control measurements. And this is how you should view the question that we just looked at. Let's move on. Now we are done with understanding the logic. Going back to the question, we can see control the project scope and prevent scope creep is in the past, since the deliverable is already created. Then B, proceed to validate the scope and obtain approval. You can't do that because your deliverable does not reflect verification or acceptance. And D, carry out regression analysis is premature. This should be done in closed project or phase. So the best answer is perform quality assurance and review any generated changes. I hope that clarifies it. Next question. Your team is using Kanban as a method to complete project work. When is the best time to carry out a demo or review? Is it A, demo at the end of the iteration as all the scheduled work is complete? Is it B, when enough features have accumulated into a set that is coherent? Is it C, use the rule of 4-week cadence to demonstrate any completed tasks? Or is it D, Kanban uses group approval, has no ceremonies for demonstrating work? Three, two, and one. The best answer can be found in 5.2.5 in the Agile Practice Guide. It reads, in iteration-based Agile, the team demonstrates all completed work items at the end of the iteration. In flow-based Agile, which of course Kanban would fall into, the team demonstrates completed work when it is time to do so, usually when enough features have accumulated into a set that is coherent. Teams include the product owner, need feedback to decide how early to ask for product feedback. Teams, including the product owner, need feedback to decide how early to ask for product feedback. So the best answer is B. All right, let's go to our next question. You are the team facilitator and coach. Your team is currently experiencing work delays and overruns due to insufficiently refined product backlog items. What is the best course of action? Is it A, servant leader should help clear these obstacles and do the heavy planning? Is it B, most likely the team doesn't know the options they have, consider a coach? Is it C, the product owner and the team should workshop stories together? Or is it D, have the Scrum Master create better acceptance criteria and definition of done for the team? 3, 2, and 1. Let's take a look at these options and use the process of elimination. Taking a look at A servant leader should help clear these obstacles and do the heavy planning. We don't do heavy planning in Agile, so we're going to cancel A. A is bogus just from the way it's worded. B, most likely the team doesn't know the options they have. Consider a coach. Well, it says you are the team facilitator and coach. So why would you look for another coach? You should be able to do your job as a coach. So getting another coach is not the answer. By the time that coach ramps up and understands the project, the team has moved on to another sprint. C, we'll come back to C and let's take a look at D. Have the Scrum Master create better acceptance criteria and definition of done for the team. Well, the acceptance criteria for each story and the definition of done for the team is not done by one person. It's done by a number of people. So it cannot be D. Best answer is working together. Workshop stories together. Create stories, decompose stories, all that. And that is why that is the best answer. Let's go to another question here. Your Scrum team is currently experiencing a lot of technical debt and degraded code quality. What should be done about this? Is it A, the product owner should provide a better product roadmap? Is it B, velocity should be considered when the Scrum Master creates the sprint goal? Is it C, refactoring, agile modeling, and automated code quality analysis? Is it D, conduct retrospectives with all stakeholders to better decide on requirements? All right, 3, 2, and 1. Let's take a look at these options. Using the process of elimination again, we'll take a look at option A. The product owner should provide a better product roadmap. Now, while the product owner could be involved in creating a roadmap, product owner is not the sole person to do so. And secondly, it reads a lot of technical debt and degraded code quality. This degraded code quality is not the fault of a product roadmap. This is to do with the team. This is to do with how work is being done. And it has nothing to do with the product roadmap. And saying the product owner should provide a better roadmap means there's no understanding of Agile if that's the choice. So very poor understanding of it, because the roadmap is done by a number of people. Let's take a look at B. Velocity should be considered when the Scrum Master creates the sprint goal. Again, this is false. The Scrum Master does not create the sprint goal. The sprint goal is all about what the team decides. And of course, when we say team, we're talking about the Scrum team. So this is a Scrum team thing. But of course, we have the product owner at the helm who decides what we're going to do, prioritizes the backlog, and focuses on value. Let's read option D. Conduct retrospectives with all stakeholders to better decide on requirements. Well, could retrospectives help better understand requirements or better decide on them? They could, but it's definitely not with all stakeholders. That is a false statement saying that a retrospective should be conducted with all stakeholders, because whatever you do in the retrospective needs to be within the team, the core team, the Scrum team. So D doesn't hold. And that leaves us with refactoring, agile modeling, and automated code quality analysis. And that is the correct answer. So when in debt, refactoring, agile modeling, pervasive testing, automated code analysis, and the definition of done are things that can help. This is on page 58 of the Agile Practice Guide. And all of that language there as far as what to do when you're encountering various problems in Agile. Highly recommend you read that page 58 in the Agile Practice Guide. And that concludes our review of the process piece. We had more questions in the process piece than the people piece, because of course, you know, process is 50% of your exam. I hope this gives you some context for the process piece. Remember, you're going to have agile, predictive, hybrid. You take care. I'll see you in the final episode where we address the business domain. See you soon. So today we're going to take a look at questions from the business domain. We took a look at questions previously from the other two. Here's the final one. It's a scaled down version, if you will, of what you could find on the exam in terms of number. So as usual, we'll take a look at the first question. I'll give you about a minute to answer. If you need more time, hit the pause button, make sure you get an answer, and then find out what the real answer is and close gaps in your knowledge. You are developing a new agile mindset for your consulting team. Which of the following best espouses an agile mindset? Is it formalizing an entire contracting relationship in a single document, reward and recognition for outstanding team members, a shared risk-reward relationship where all sides win? Consultant bears all the risk so that your procurement team wins. What do you think? I'll give you a minute. All right, 3, 2, and 1. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the option of most relevance to Agile is. We'll start from the bottom up. D, consultant bears all the risk so that your procurement team wins. That sounds lopsided and a bit selfish. Just wanting your team, your procurement team to win, put all the risk on the consultant. That is not an agile mindset. We should be thinking about collaboration over contract negotiation. C, a shared risk-reward relationship where all sides win. Well, what could go wrong if every side wins? Let's hold on to that thought. B, reward and recognition for, note the word, outstanding team members. In the world of Agile, we do not segregate outstanding team members from what may be otherwise not outstanding. We take a look at team output as opposed to taking a look at individual output. So B, reward and recognition for outstanding team members. While it sounds good, this is not in the spirit of Agile. The spirit of Agile rewards the team, not individuals. So the world of traditional and the world of Agile, they work very differently. A, formalizing an entire contracting relationship in a single document. The size of the document is not important. It's what is in the document that would make it Agile or not. So there's not enough in this for us to go with A. And that leaves you with C. a shared risk reward relationship where all sides win. So taking a look at this could apply to a team, it could apply to a consultant, anything. Questions such as this that seem to combine ideas from different aspects of the business can be expected. You're not always going to get a question where all the options are something that pertains to a team. You could get some options that are consultant related, some that are team related, but the bottom line is which of these espouses an agile mindset? Okay, so answer to that, A. All right, let's move on to our next question. When addressing an individual challenge area or implementing a new hybrid or agile approach, a common practice is to treat the change process as an agile project with its own backlog of changes that could be introduced and prioritized by the team. Which of the following is consistent with Agile manifesto principles and Scrum practices? I'm going to give you a minute and 12 seconds. This one is a bit of a long one. A little bit more time left. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, so when addressing an individual challenge area or implementing a new hybrid or agile approach, a common practice is to treat the change process as an agile project with its own backlog of changes that could be introduced and prioritized by the team. Which of the following is consistent with Agile manifesto principles and Scrum practices? Again, let's start from the bottom. At project end, when the product goal is reached, review external business environment. So watch this. At project end, review external business environment for impacts on the project scope and make adjustments for the program. What good is that when the program or the project is already done, when the product goal is reached? You should actually do this before the goal is reached. So we're going to cancel D because it doesn't make sense. C, work with stakeholders to reduce scope creep and, watch this, limit options for scope changes or backlog changes. That is not in the spirit of Agile. It then says the less change there is, the faster the product will be completed. So not in the spirit of Agile. In the world of Agile, we embrace and welcome change. The only thing we do not do is within the sprint, encourage copious tons of change. We don't do that. Once our sprint is locked in the world of Scrum, we keep it as pure as possible. So that is a different kind of question, but it still comes into play. You need to have a keen eye for detail. When it talks about scope creep, limiting options for scope backlog changes, we see things differently in this world. While we don't want people to say they want a Tesla when they ask for a Harley in the first place, we at the same time do not limit options for backlog changes in general. That is the whole idea behind Agile. Change needs to happen, change the backlog. All right. So when we say backlog, we mean product backlog, not the sprint backlog. The sprint backlog, we do not want to change as much as we can. The product backlog, people can update that. The question is, will it be done? And that's the product owner's call. Let's go to B. Assess and prioritize the impact on the product backlog based on external environment changes. Engage all relevant stakeholders in technical decisions. That doesn't sound bad. Let's take a look at A. Focus on the immediate environment. Only each sprint. Okay. A focus on the immediate environment only each sprint and not on the external business environment, and exclude the product owner from technical decisions. Well, of course, that would be a recipe for failure. The product owner does need to be in those discussions, and you do not relegate your discoveries and your focus on just the immediate environment. You got to take a look at the big picture, business environment. So this is really based on the PMP exam content outline, all right? Most sensible option is B. Assess and prioritize the impact on the product backlog based on external environment changes. Engage all relevant stakeholders in technical decisions. Okay. That's that. Let's go to our next one. You're working with a business unit to complete a benefits management plan. Which of the following would you expect to be done as part of the responsibilities of the benefits owner? Select all that apply. I'll let you read it. All right, if you need more time, hit the pause button. 3, 2, and 1. So go into option D, using the process of elimination. It reads, appraise stakeholders of value gain progress. Remember, it says select all that apply. So we're going to put a tick. That applies. Appraise stakeholders of value gain progress. How do we know this? Well, a lot of this stuff is in the PMBOK guide in section 1262, page 33. But in addition to that, the PMP exam content outline contains these specific tasks. Let's take a look at C. Verify a measurement system is in place to track schedule progress. This is talking about schedule. We know that the benefits owner's job is not to put a measurement system in place for schedule. That sounds more like what the PM would do. So we are not going to choose that. Let's go to B. Document agreement on ownership for ongoing benefit realization. In other words, who's going to own it? That's definitely something we do there. And lastly, it says, investigate that benefits identified. It's one of the main things the benefit owner does. So the answer is A, B, and D. And you do recall on your exam, you very well could get one of those, select all that applies, right? They could very well ask you to choose more than one. So you get ready for questions like that. All right, let's move on to our next one. As a project manager, you're expected to confirm project compliance requirements, for example, security, health and safety, regulatory compliance, and classify compliance categories while determining potential threats to compliance. Which of the following risk identification models exist to help you achieve this? Go ahead. All right, 3, 2, and 1. So which of the following risk identification models exists to help you achieve this? In other words, which of these is a real model? Well, you've got 4 lines and you've got an answer buried. For this one, we're going to start off with A. We're going to use the process of elimination to cancel anything that is bogus, doesn't exist. So A, VUCA, Ester, and Teacup. So if you take a look, like I said, on page 416 of the PMBOK guide, you can see that VUCA does exist. It's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. Ester does not exist. Teacup does exist. Teacup stands for technical, environmental, commercial, operational, and political. The second one, MOLA, does not exist. PESTLE does exist. PESTLE is political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. So based on that, we know Ester doesn't exist, MOLA doesn't exist, MOTA doesn't exist. PESTLE and Teacup do, and so does VUCA. And that leaves us with option D. So you're going to know which models are real and which ones are fake, just in case you get questions on any of that. Let's take a look at the next one. The product owner and the team discussed the user stories planned for a particular project. The team pointed out that none of the stories had acceptance criteria defined, and that these were needed to define the acceptance tests for each story and deliverable. However, they could not agree on when exactly these needed to be identified or defined, rather. Ideally, when should the acceptance tests be defined? I'll give you a minute. All right, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, let's start from the top and we'll go down. So it reads, they could not agree on exactly when these needed to be defined. Ideally, when should the acceptance test be defined? So you got to remember, when you're taking a look at user stories, the front of the card, it's typically the story, the role, goal, benefit. You got to remember to flip it over, right? Because when you flip the card over at the back, that's where you typically would put the acceptance criteria, doing things with physical note cards and so on, like the good old days. So A says before release planning during visioning. That is way early. You don't even have stories then, most of the time. So let's get rid of that. Or you might have an epic or two, but definitely not the whole laundry list of stories, right? So it's very unlikely you'd be looking for criteria at this point. Now, if it is the multiple events that happen, because release plan is not just a one-time thing, if it so happens that it's in the future, it's still not the best place to do that. But this says before release planning. If you think about the very first round of release planning, you wouldn't be doing that in there. So that's not ideal. B, during the iteration, at any time before development is complete. So think about it, assembling acceptance criteria in the middle of the sprint, while development is going on, before it's complete. No, that is not correct. Not B. Let's take a look at C. during the review or retrospective with customer input? No, the customer is not there in a review meeting for the purpose of defining criteria. It would not happen in a demo, that's for sure. Could you get news stories in a demo? You could, but as far as the acceptance criteria, the acceptance tests, that would have to be done outside of the review. The best answer is D. It's in refinement before development. And when you know the 353 and you know what happens in each event, it makes sense as to why you would do this in backlog refinement, right? So it's in refinement before development. And that is the overarching best answer. And that, my friends, concludes our review of people, process, and business. Today, we took a look at business. This is how we think in the Project Management Masterclass. It's all getting you ready for the PMP exam. So going down to projectmanagementmasterclass.com, take a look. Very well could be the course that helps you get this down pat. Thank you. You take care. Don't forget, hit like, subscribe, share with your friends. Talk to you soon. Bye for now. Hello, my awesome project managers. Welcome to quick question time, an excerpt from the Project Management Masterclass. I hope you're doing well. This is going to be a very rapid review of questions just to kick the tires and ensure that you're doing well. Now, if you are getting ready for the PMP exam and you're struggling and you're wondering, how am I going to get this done? Maybe you're looking for help. I advise you going down to our website. It's projectmanagementmasterclass.com. You'll be able to see when our next session is, and you'll be able to sign up, join us in class, and get done in record time. All right. So let's jump into a few of our questions for today. You might remember these questions from our previous session, and I'll be very quick with them. I would ask for you to hit the pause button, take a best guess, and I'll tell you what the answer is. Okay? So let's read. On an Agile project involving lightweight estimating methods and incremental delivery, the product owner complains that the process being used by the team are insufficient. What should the project manager do upon receiving this complaint? All right, 3, 2, 1. Now, the answer to this is to, of course, have dialogue. Dialogue is going to help you. So making the changes and following recommended change control procedures is not the best because you are just making changes without dialogue. B says meet one-on-one with the product owner, keep it secret. That's never good. Why would you keep the team out? C says conduct a retrospective in the absence of the product owner so you can discuss freely. That's never good. Transparency is what we should be upholding. And lastly, meet with the product owner and the team to better understand the problem. Option D. All right. So the answer to this would be option D. Now, we've gone through quite a few of these questions, so I'm going to jump ahead from question 1 to question 8. So, question 8. You're working as a product coordinator on a hybrid project. A defect is discovered in the production facility. What should you do next? If you need more time, remember to hit the pause button. I will be telling you the answer shortly. 3, 2, and 1. All right, now as a student on the exam, you got to use the process of elimination. Okay? So when you discover a defect, what should you do? Should you immediately send the change request? No. What are you sending a change request for? You don't even know. B, use a cause and effect diagram to analyze the situation and determine failure causes. Doesn't sound like a bad idea, but let's read the others. C, meet with the portfolio steering committee to discuss the defect found. That's too much firepower for a very straightforward thing, right? Even if it's a more complex problem, you wouldn't go all the way to the portfolio steering committee and discuss the defect and then do what? No. D, put the defect on the product backlog for further action by the operations team. Think about what it's telling you. It's talking about an operations team. That's not the development team. So whenever you look at these options, you got to use process of elimination to cancel out the fiction, leave the fact. So the best option for this is B. Even though it sounds safe and obvious, right? Use a cause and effect diagram. It's the best option. Everything else is not as good as finding out what is the problem here. We got a defect, what is causing the defect, and based on that, you want to find out what is causing it, and then you could go to the next stage, which would be to send a change request, which would be A. But you wouldn't go to A immediately, you would do B first. All right, let's go to our next one. As a Scrum Master working on an Agile delivery, senior management asked you to present metrics of concern. Which of the following would you present to them? Again, hit the pause button, give it a little bit of time, think about it. 3, 2, and 1. Okay. So you got to ask yourself, on a burn chart, what is on the x-axis and what is on the y-axis, if you can remember well enough. Okay. So you might recall on a burn chart, you've got this, you've got on the y-axis, it could be story points, it could be effort, such as hours. Okay, but it's typically the story points, right? And then on the x-axis, you've got sprints, or you've got days or weeks and things like that, the time factor. So with that in mind, A says a burn up chart with cost on the x-axis. Cost would not be on the x-axis, so it's not that. B says a burn down chart with days on the y-axis. Now we've got story points on the y-axis, or hours at worst. C says a burn down chart with weeks on the x-axis. Remember, x-axis, we could have sprints, we could have weeks, we could have days as well. So that's not entirely out of the question. Let's look at D. A release burn down with effort on the x-axis. Now, a release burn down, you wouldn't be with effort on the x-axis. It would still be with effort on the y-axis. So that's not correct. The best option is C. All right, so you got to know your metrics and what you're measuring and which axes they're on. It could help. All right, let's go to our next one. You are working on a project with a high degree of change, but a low frequency of delivery. Which approach should you select as a project manager? I'll give you some more time. 3, 2, 1. Okay. So, take a look at the options. Since it says a high degree of change, but a low frequency of delivery, you know that it cannot be predictive, because predictive, if you think about how the map is in your PMBOK guide, right? Remember, you've got predictive here, or your Agile practice guide, I beg your pardon. You got predictive here, you've got Agile here. You got the element of changeability, right? And a high degree of change, a low frequency, I beg your pardon. This is frequency of delivery, and this is change on the x-axis. So a high frequency of delivery, you know you've got incremental up here, and over here, you know you've got iterative. Just in case you've forgotten where this is in your Agile practice guide. And I don't have mine to hand exactly here. The page you want to look for is, I believe, I want to guess 19, maybe. But take a look and you'll see that when you have a low degree of change, you're going to be using predictive, or a high degree of change is going to be iterative or agile. A low degree of change is going to be incremental or predictive. But this says a high degree of change, but a low frequency of delivery, which is more to this side over here. This side over here, which is where your iterative is. Okay, so iterative is a high degree of change, but we deliver one time. If you read your Agile practice guide, pages 18 and 19, you'll be able to see this. Okay, so the best answer is choose an iterative approach, option D. Okay, so let's cross out all the others. It's not agile because agile is high frequency of delivery, high degree of change. It's not predictive because predictive is low degree of change, low frequency of delivery. It's not incremental because incremental is high frequency of delivery and a low degree of change. So the only one that is a high degree of change but a low frequency of delivery is iterative. All right, let's move on and take a look at one more. The Directing PMO just selected you to be part of a new endeavor. Which of the following should you work on preceding project authorization through an Agile project charter? So, which of the following should you work on preceding project authorization through an Agile project charter? Okay, so we've already talked about what you should work on preceding authorization. So it cannot be a project charter because that is authorization, right? So it's not A. Okay. What should you work on before authorization? Should you work on an assumption log before authorization? No, we typically do that after authorization. All right, so you got a couple. You got the benefits management plan, you got the product backlog. Think about it. Would you work on a product backlog before the project is authorized and moving? No, you wouldn't. However, you might think about the benefits management plan. This is what you can find on page 33 of the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. And that is why the answer is benefits management plan. Okay? These questions that I'm showing you here are pretty hybridized, but we prepare our students very well for hybrid questions on the PMP exam. Going back to our little discussion in the beginning, if you're looking for training, coaching, and help and assistance to get certified as a PMP, think about it. Time is really money, right? Because some folks are going for courses that require them to be focused on a computer screen for 35 hours. You just got to go cold. That's crazy. 35 hours just studying nothing but watching videos and falling asleep. Let's be honest. For some people are motivated to do those very difficult courses, but I want to recommend to you, if you have a time crunch and you're finding it hard to focus, concentrate, and study alone, my suggestion to you is to go to projectmanagementmasterclass.com. You can look for the link below. We are starting training again this month. So just look for the link and you'll be able to join the next session. We're going to expose you to all sorts of studying, not only predictive, not only agile, but also the hybrid factor. And that's why a lot of the questions that you're seeing here today, they are rather hybrid in nature. One more question, and I promise this will be it. We'll be done. All right. The Agile Project Management Office has appointed you to manage a new cross-functional project seeking to deliver value regularly. As one of the first steps, you need to choose your way of working. Which of the following would you select as the project manager working with a highly motivated team with T-shaped skills? Would you select a hybrid life cycle, a predictive life cycle, an iterative life cycle, a software development life cycle? All right, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, now, taking a look at this question, I know it might throw you for a loop. Well, anyone could use any of these, but let's read between the lines. The Agile Project Management Office, did you catch that? Has appointed you to manage a new cross-functional project. So we have an Agile Project Management Office and you're working on a new cross-functional project. Won't it make sense to use something that enables effective working together, right? It says you need to choose your way of working. Which of the following would you select as a project manager with a highly motivated team with T-shaped skills? T-shaped skills means they got skills to be able to do things in a number of ways and be able to cover for each other. The best in lieu of Agile is hybrid. So the answer to this is not going to be predictive. It's not going to be iterative. It will be something hybrid. That would be the best, okay? If you don't have something agile, use something hybrid, okay, when working with your cross-functional team. I hope this makes sense, and I hope you found this to be useful. Again, my friends, I know some of you are really struggling hard with this exam. Go on down to projectmanagementmasterclass.com, okay? Sign up for training there, and we look forward to seeing you in the class later on this month. You take care, and all the very best. Bye for now. Hello, my friends. I hope you're doing well. How's your day? How's your PMP exam prep coming along? Well, our awesome students on the PM Masterclass program sent these in. They have their study group every now and again, and they take a look at roughly 150 questions going back and forth between them. These are some of the questions they sent me to clarify. So this is the 11th question, and it says, your project initiator has taken the next step to formalize the project. You assisted in the creation of the document that authorizes the project. That's the project charter, right? You need to review all things considered to be true without proof. So what are things that we consider to be true without proof? They are assumptions, right? You also need to review factors and things that limit team options. What are those constraints? And it says, what should you do next? Well, if that's what you need to do, what you should do next is work on a document or a process that combines these two. So since you're already in the development of the charter, you already developed the charter, it sounds like what you possibly have left to do is these two things. So you need to review the things called assumptions and also constraints. There's only one document it could be. It has to be the assumption log. Option C. Okay, so the answer to that first one is C, the assumption log. Okay, that's what you need to do. All right, let's go to the next one. Now that I've clarified for you that this is the assumption log, let's see the next question you brought up. And I appreciate you sharing these because our friends on YouTube get to look into it as well. All right, this one is about backlog preparation. All right, let's take a look at this and see which number it is. Okay, it's the next one. What do you know? That's the next one. Okay. You have been involved in backlog preparation with your stakeholders. Now, on the exam, if they tell you it's backlog, you got to remember that backlog is an umbrella word that is used for any sort of backlog. It could be product backlog, it could be service backlog, it could be IT request backlog, whatever the case. It says your team member is assisting you in creating a product backlog. What is the next best step? So it's a little bit vague overall. You got to look in the options to understand what they're talking about. So A, include the Agile project charter and scope of work. No, you don't include the Agile project charter and scope of work in your product backlog. And again, the term scope of work is not typically used in Agile. That would be a red herring right there. Next one says, include the definition of done and definition of ready. These are in the team charter, not in the product backlog, not in the backlog. Okay. C, include the sprint goal and acceptance criteria. You're in the product backlog, so it cannot be anything to do with a sprint goal in your product backlog. So we're going to get rid of that one. And the acceptance criteria, you know, is at the back of the card, the user story, which is in the product backlog. But at this point, we don't have this. That's sprint goal, so that wouldn't be correct. D says, include user requests, in other words, user stories, and requirements. Requirements that have been written in that format. So the answer to this, the best answer is D. All right, I hope that demystifies those for you.
Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, let's see. Your product owner is working with the team. Let's see which question that one is. Product owner is working with the team. Okay, question 35. Let's see if we can fish that out. Question 35. Here we go. Your product owner is working with the team on deciding on a set of conditions that is required to be met before a user story is accepted. Okay, so we're talking about the user story acceptance, not the PSI, not the potentially shippable increment. We're talking about the user story. All right, so you said it was a toss-up between, okay, between A and B. So the definition of ready is not the same as acceptance criteria. When we talk about a user story being accepted, we mean that the story has been worked on by the team and the user story is, in quote, at a point that it can be incorporated into a deliverable, or maybe that story is in and of itself something that can be delivered. But the bottom line is, when we say a story is ready, we mean it's ready to be worked on, not ready to go, as in you could say the user story is done. I don't like using the word done because done is used for the PSI, but for lack of a better word, you can say the particular story is at a point where it can be integrated, or it is at a point where it is, what's the word? Acceptable, right? So for lack of a better word, the best answer here, my friends, is not the definition of ready. That means ready to be worked on, right? And you remember what we talk about when we say a story is ready. We talk about the INVEST acronym: independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small enough to fit within a sprint, and testable. So the best answer is not A, and of course it's not C or D, which you folks knew. The answer is B. That's your acceptance criteria right there. Remember, when we talk about the user story, we talk about the front of the card and the back of the card. The front of the card has a story, the back of the card has the acceptance criteria. Okay? Definition of ready is all about the INVEST acronym. So the answer to that one is B. Good. I'm glad you folks had fun with these questions. Let's see what else you sent me. So another one about scheduling, huh? Okay. Let's check that one out and see what number that one is. And by the way, I think you folks might be looking at the old, the limited edition one or the limited number one. You need to look for the one where you got about 150 questions. That one has got the numbering scheme at the top right. That's the one you want to look at. And remember, I told you, don't look at the answers. Well, the answers are in the new one, so I'm not sure which one you folks were looking at. But anyway, here is the final question: establishing how to build a schedule. Let's see if we can find that. Okay, that's number 53. Let's go on to number 53. All right, here we go. And it says you're in the process of establishing how to build a schedule, the policies, procedures, and documentation for planning, developing, managing, executing, and controlling the project schedule, right? Which result do you expect to receive from this process? So this is right in the beginning. This is the, if you will, plan schedule management process. So let's talk about why it's plan schedule management. It says the policies and procedures for and documentation for planning, developing, managing, it's the whole shebang. It's everything. So you're planning how. Anytime you see establishing how, you know it's talking about a planning process. How are we going to do this, that, and the other? So using the process of elimination, we know it's not the project schedule. That's from develop schedule. It's not the schedule baseline. That's from develop schedule. It's not schedule forecast. That's from control schedule. It has to be schedule development approach, which is one of the sub things you have in your schedule management plan, which is from plan schedule management. Okay. And those are the answers, my friends. I'm really glad that you worked on this today. I look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Those of you who have not yet signed up for our project management masterclass, you want to go on down to the website praizion.com. You see Praizion as it's spelled over there, Praizion.com. We have a masterclass starting at the beginning of the next month. All right, so jump on the bandwagon, and I look forward to seeing you. You take care. Bye for now.